Hey guys, welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast. My name is Brian,
And my name is Maggie.
and we interview Asian entrepreneurs around the world to amplify their voices and empower Asians to pursue their dreams and goals.
We believe that each person has a message and a unique story from their entrepreneurial journey that they can share with all of us.
Hey guys, welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast. My name is Brian,
And my name is Maggie.
and this week we have Desmond Lim, founder of Workstream.us. We're super excited to have him on the show. This guy is the definition of an extreme hustler. He's a Harvard graduate. You know, he started his company. We want to hear a lot more about his stories from Singapore, and now we all live in the Bay Area. We're super excited to have him. Desmond Lim, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brian, for having me. I'm very glad to be able to hear and to be able to share more.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
much.
We're super excited to have you here. But before we dive deep into Workstream, we want to learn about who are you? Like, we understand that you grew up in Singapore. Your parents were, workers that worked really hard to give you the future that you needed to succeed. And that resonates with both of us too. And the reason why we started Asian Hustle Network. So we definitely want to hear more about your story.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, maybe I could just start by sharing with y'all a bit more about me and about my parents. I think that is like a really great way to start. And then if you have any other questions, we can go on from there. Do you think that sounds good?
That sounds great.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I founded my first business right after high school to pay for college. So both my parents, they are both hourly workers. My dad he's a driver, and my mom, she just helps him. So my dad's been driving for the past 40 years. My granddad actually came from China to like Singapore when he was 17, and he only $1 in his pocket, and he actually founded this and he had this very big family. My dad was like ranked fourth out of I think 13 kids, so very big family. So my dad came out to work very early. So did my mom. They both only finished fourth grade. So so right after high school, my parents, they didn't want me to go out to school. They were saying, hey, you should go out and find a job, because that is the way that we have learned, right? But I saw all my peers and friends, they were all going to school. I couldn't pay for it yet. So my very first business was actually teaching math and science. So I really started from this. I saw there was an ad on this papers to be this tutor. So I started to call up people to see if I can help them to teach math and science. I must have done about 50 to 100 calls. Then I got my first job.
Wow.
And from the very first student, I grew to having like 5-10 students. I went on to grow to having more than 50 over students. So from just teaching one-on-one, I started to form groups whereby I would teach groups of 4 to 5 people, math and science. And after that, I started to match people. I started to match some of my friends who were keen to teach to some of my students. So that was my very first business. I created enough sales to pay for college back home, Singapore. And when I was in college, I founded a Thai food restaurant selling tom yum, curry, pad Thai for 3 years. It was very fun, but it was also very challenging having to manage people.
Yeah.
But I learned so much from that, trying to run operations, finance, trying to hire people. I ran it for 3 years throughout college. All the while I was in school, and I was also playing sports. One other fun fact that I think I didn't share with you and the team is I've been playing basketball since young. I've been playing since I was 7, and I would play until I was 23. I was actually Singapore's actually starting point guard.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
I've been playing basketball for my whole life since I was young, and I always tell folks that sports was one of the big things that really changed my life because my parents didn't know much about school. I didn't know much about school and work, but I was okay in sports, and I knew that if I try to work hard, I can get forward.
Yeah.
Right. So I think throughout high school, college, while I was trying to juggle other things, I was also playing sports.
Yeah.
I still remember clearly when I was playing in this Southeast Asian Games. It was actually in this Vietnam. So it was fun. We played against Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, and more. I think we were ranked third or fourth.
Wow.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So this was all until about college. So maybe I will pause here to see if I should go on more, or if you have any
I definitely
other.
want to hear about their
keep
entire
going.
story, like just to recap for
Okay,
our
cool.
listeners too, like there's a lot of great things that I can see why you're so successful already. It's just the way we're also brought up, as you mentioned before, your grandparents had $1, came up like $1 and it made something happen, And I always feel like when you're down to your last resource, you become more resourceful because you have to survive. You do things you would never do because you have a family to take care of. And that's really reminiscent of my own family. So my parents escaped the Vietnam War, and when he came over here, they were living off $25. And at that time, they were about 21, 22. And my sister and my brothers are born already. And they had to spend $25 to take care of an entire family until my dad made some money.
Yeah.
They keep telling their stories like, if we can live off $25, you can live off for much less than that. You have to be responsible. And they're telling me what they spent it on. They spent it on a case of water. They spent the money on instant noodles, and they still had like $13 left over. And they're like, okay, we can last another month. So that's really reminiscent of what your story and the way that we were brought up. The other thing is your parents finished up to 4th grade. My mom finished up to 3rd grade, and my dad did up to 6th grade. They probably wouldn't let me. They probably wouldn't let me talking about this right now. They're like, "Hey, everybody," But there's other things that they bring to the table too. It's like even though the education is not that high, but the way they look at life is very holistic. It's very like, hey, you can do anything you want. Don't let anything stop you. And I love your hustler mentality. Like,
thank you.
You paid for yourself during college. That's amazing. Like, that's stories we hear about from like people we look up to. And you're one of the guys we look up to.
And not a lot
thank you.
do that. That requires a lot of grit and a lot of hustle. So that's you can really appreciate that.
And one thing I also noticed too, it's that the way you're running your business right now, right? You draw upon every single experience you ever had in your life to run this company. Whenever you're back against this wall, you're like, hey, I managed 50 plus people in my restaurant before. I managed 50 students. This is doable. I've done this in the past before. I did so much more with so little money. I did so much more with so little knowledge.
That's true.
You have knowledge and the credential. You went to Harvard. What can you do with that?
Yeah.
Pushing the limit.
Yeah, no, that is so great. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, and maybe I'll just share a bit more then. So after I ran my business, I sold it in my senior year, and I went out to work in actually finance. I was with this Merrill Lynch for 3 years back in Singapore. And I saved up for those 3 years so that I could come to the US for school. I always had this dream and hope that, hey, I'm going to come to the US to try to start this business here because there's so much more I can learn, right? So after 3 years with this Merrill, I came to the US in 2013. And I must say that the years from 2013 to 2016, when I was back in Boston, were the 3 years that I really so-called, I would say so-called really pushed the hardest in terms of trying to actually hustle and try to save my money. I pretty much went through school without spending so much money because I work as this RA at school. So I was living at this MIT frat house, and they gave me room and board, which is great. So I have food and I have a place to stay. And then I managed to get this half scholarship from the school.
Awesome.
So I paid for the other half with my own savings. I managed to find a place at school where I can work, where I can run my actually actually team from. So it is called Harvard Innovation Lab. So it was really great to be based there.
Mhm.
I got a free bike from my friend that I can actually cycle to and fro school.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it was really great. I really had a really good setup,
Mhm.
such that even after when I finished school, I was able to have some like savings to work on my current business.
Mhm.
So I feel like there's always all this news about how you really have to hustle, you really have to go into debt to try to start your own
Mhm.
business. I think that is not real. I think people should actually think about how can you create enough cushion and this
Mhm.
savings so that when you come out to do your own business, you don't feel scared.
Yeah,
Right.
I
Yeah,
like
yeah. So
I like that a
so
lot.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that was really what I did throughout school. And then I moved out to the Bay Area in 2016. I moved out to Palo Alto because my wife, she was based here. She was going to school at this actually Stanford
Mhm.
Business School. So I came out to be with her and I've been here since and been working on my current company since late 21/7. Now we are a team of about 40 people.
Wow.
Most of our teammates are in the Bay Area, but we also have teammates in this Singapore, China, but mainly it's based in the US. So
Mhm.
yeah.
What was your thought process, moving to San Francisco, coming from Singapore, a whole new place? What were your thoughts just moving? Did you, know exactly what you were going to do when you moved here, or, were you kind of just in the process of meeting new people and like, deciding what you wanted to do, deciding, like how you wanted to start your business?
Yeah, that's a good question, Maggie. So I first came out to the Bay Area in 2007 for
Mhm.
this school trip when I was still in freshman year. So that was more than 13 years ago. So I'm very old. So I came out
Mhm.
then for like a 1 month long trip. We went to about 8 to 9 companies like Apple, Google, and more. And I think that trip when I was still in school, that really changed my mind. I
Mhm.
always had this thinking that I have to come back here someday to kind of
Yeah.
start my own business.
Mhm.
So I think that was always a dream that I had for more than like 10 over years. But I knew that things don't just happen overnight. I
Right.
mean, I think that is kind of the one single advice that I love to share is that people have to learn to be patient. Trying to build something takes time, right?
Mhm.
You need to be really focused and work on something for quite some time. It can be
Right.
months and years, and sometimes 5 to 10 years, right? So I think I was just really focused on that. So when the chance came for me to move out here,
Mhm.
I was just very clear that I should come out here. And one fun fact was that um, I feel very thankful because even though I only went to school at this Harvard, but in my first 6 years in the US, I I was staying in three dorm rooms. The first 2 years was at Harvard. The second 2 years was at MIT because I was doing work at this SSRA. And when I came out to the Bay Area, 2016 to 2018, my wife, she was going to school here at this Stanford. So as her spouse, I went in and took about 10 over classes for free.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I would just walk into the class and my wife, she would write to the prof and say, hey, can my spouse see in the class? So I
Uh-huh.
took over 10 over classes for free and I learned so much. My
Mhm.
wife always jokes that I know even more folks than her because I had time, right? She was at school. I had free time and I was just always in this school cafe
Yeah.
trying to meet with people and chat.
Yes.
So some people may think that, hey, it is not right for you to do so, but
Mhm.
um, I felt fine because I was able to create value for my peers and friends. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, some of the classes I even did better than my wife, and she was not very happy.
We'll make sure we edit the part out. So you can hear it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, again, really, really good points. I think you mentioned that you really have to enjoy the process, you know? I think that nowadays we see a lot of situations where people are watching too many movies and they're like, oh man, like I can totally be successful overnight. That's not the case at all. Like you have to continually be focused and have a lot of patience, like you said, and really enjoy the process. It's gonna take a long time for your vision to become a reality. That plays into the passion part too. Like how passionate about the subject. Like can you continually feel the same way about it every single morning for the next 3 to 5 years? You have to ask yourself that question, And I like how you spent your time really well. Like you knew for the fact that your wife is at Stanford graduate school, and you knew the kind of value that it could bring you guys, as not just for your wife, but for you yourself. You're like, okay, instead of just sitting at home and doing whatever, you're attending classes with your wife. You're finding a lot of value from it. So whatever return you got from those classes is infinite because you never paid anything for it.
It was great. It was actually very good, and even for my current idea, it actually came out from some of these classes that I took there. There was a class, it's called Startup Garage. I think for this class there are startups such as DoorDash and SoFi. They all came out from that class.
Wow.
So it's actually during that class that I came up with this idea with my team. So
that's extremely valuable too. It's like you never let a minute go by, without I think that resonates with a lot of people within the Asian Hustle Network too. It's like, people always think that, the opportunities are never coming my way. Like I don't have enough luck. I'm not smart enough. I can't do this. I can't do that. But opportunity are never limited. Only your mind is. As soon as you know your mind more, you make something happen. And you go out there, you network, you talk to people, that expands your horizon.
That's true. Like that is very true. Just to share more, when I first came out to start my current company, Workstream, I must have pitched about 50, 60 companies before the first one said yes. I actually went door to door in the streets of this Palo Alto, and I just went to every single shop and tried to talk to them. Hey, I would love to ask you a few simple questions about your current hiring process. And I really just went door to door, and then many people said no, but there was one that said yes.
All you need is one yes.
Yes.
But I love it. I love the hustle mentality you always had. And the fact that it kind of reminds me of, me and Maggie too. When we're hustling, we're a little bit shameless. Like we don't care what people think about us. We just have to do
That's awesome.
what we have to do to succeed. And that's the only way you can succeed. There's hustle and there's consistency and patience, but the missing ingredient is grit.
Yes.
Grit. Like you have to push through no matter how much force pushes back.
Yes.
That's that's amazing story. And having you come from Singapore to Boston to Harvard, MIT to here to sitting in classes at Stanford getting ideas, like, what does this track record show you? This guy's a nerd. That's kidding.
I am.
I'm just kidding.
He admits it too, so that's good.
I'm just messing around because I love this story so much.
Thank you so much.
And let's dive into Workstream too. Like we want to hear more about it. Like we know for a fact that listening to all your previous speeches, it's a $370 billion industry. And you're using AI-driven platform to predict like the best matches for roles. Like that's crazy. Like this interview that we watched was in 2018. So we want to see like how the platform has changed, adapted, and has grown over the years.
Of course. Thank you so much. So I think what we are working on is this AI-driven hiring software that is really built for companies hiring hourly workers. We work with a wide range of clients from restaurants, hotels, healthcare, supermarkets, and more. The truth is, about 60% of all people who work in the US, they are hourly workers. It's a very big space. There's about 80 million of them. So, but there's been a ton of software built for people who work not in this role. I mean, most software today are built for people who work in this office, are built for people who work in tech. think about software like Zoom, Slack, Workday, Salesforce. I mean, do you think someone who runs a chain of these cafes will want to use the software? They could, but it is not built for them.
Right.
So we see there's a huge gap there in terms of software built for non-office workers. We all call it the main bulk of people who is in this space, right? So all of our current workflow is via texting. Everything is all built on the phone. There is also a lot of this automation in our software that can help to save you time, right? So that is really what we are doing, trying to use texting, mobile workflows, and this AI to help you to source for more people and to be able to screen and to onboard people faster. So today we work with a few hundred brands from Jamba Juice, Subway, Marriott, F1, H&M, and more. So we surely have a pretty broad base of these clients that we now work with.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's amazing. I think that's really prevalent because, with text messaging, that removes the onus from the employer, right? Because, employers may forget to follow up with the employee, and maybe the employee forgets to get back to the employer, and just having that AI and just having like the text messages automatically sent out to the candidates, I think that removes a lot of the burden that, is involved in hiring processes.
Yeah, and not just that too, you're creating a larger audience.
Yeah.
I think as you mentioned one of your speeches before, like everyone uses their phone. Not everyone uses the computer, Yes. Not everyone has access to a computer, which has access to internet and a website. I think essentially what you're doing inherently is you're targeting a larger work base who may or may not speak English that well.
Yep, that's true.
That's extremely valuable, especially given the COVID-19 situation that we're all seeing. Like your application is extremely essential for most people to be able to become employed, on your next job. And we definitely want to do our part to make sure we promote your business too. And
thank you.
Having our meeting as our podcast and Asian Hustle Network is currently almost at 50,000 members. We can help push that through and really get more people to understand the power of Workstream.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Of course. And that's really our goal too. And as you mentioned before, this is a $370 billion industry that you're targeting. And the way that you guys are rapidly moving is really quick. Like just looking at your seed investments and going through your venture capitalist funds and raising, that's amazing. It's so fast.
Thank you.
It's really damn fast.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm involved with the angel investing side of type in the Bay Area. So I see your work. I see everything that you do. So very impressed by that. So we have a lot of people inside Asian Hustle Network that definitely want to learn about this process.
Yeah.
So can you kind of walk us through your story too? Like when you first started Workstream, what was the idea like? What was the prototype like before you raised your first seed investment? Because you have some really big seed investors, Justin Kahn and all the Asian mafias,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. So when people think about trying to build software startups, they always think about, hey, I need to go and hire a team of software people to build the first version of the software.
Yeah.
People think that I have to spend so much money. The truth is, it is not true. There is actually many ways that you can test whether people have a real need for what you take off. I think I always tell other founders, think about what is your MVP, right? If you're trying to sell something online, maybe you're trying to sell clothes and you want to build this online software for it. Just have a simple type form or have a simple landing page where people can email or like text you. Think about what is the so-called cheapest price that you can try to start off, because the main thing is you have to test whether people actually want to buy what you have. Right? If you go and spend 6 months to hire a team of 5 software people to build your software and you go out there to test it and people say, hey, this is not what I want, then you have to go back to change everything. And it is not just money, it is time, right? So what is the least amount of work you can do to come up with something to test? And you can test things in several ways. Like one way is think about whether people is actually willing, able to pay for what you have to give. That is the best, right? If yours is not a paid thing, you can think about whether people are open to give you their email, right? That is some kind of value. If people are open to give you their email, if people are able to give you their time, all those are trademarks that people have a real need for what you are trying to build. So I think that was really what I did early on. I went out to talk to a few hundred clients, trying to learn about what are their pain points, trying to watch how they hire people. I found out that many of them will use Google Sheets, email, and more to manage hiring, which was fairly manual. So me and my teammates, we came up with this wireframes in maybe about 4 to 5 days. So we simply use Sketch as a free software to come up with this wireframes. And next, I use this wireframes with no code at all to show it to these clients and say, hey, this is what we drew out. If you click on this button, it will lead to this other frame. Tell me what you think.
Right.
So this was phase 2. So phase 1, phase 2. And after this feedback, I must have done this at least like 5 to 7 times to try and get more feedback. Prior to me and my teammate, we built up the very first version of the software. And then we had our first paid client in a few weeks after. So that was really the whole flow of us coming up with the very first version of the software. When I went out to raise my first round of funding, I have some tips that I can share. And if any other members are keen to talk to me about trying to raise funding, I'll be very glad to like share more, because I think trying to raise funding, there is a lot of art and science behind it. But when I went out to raise funding, I had about 10 paying clients, so not that much. And sometimes I tell other founders that if you're running a software company, sometimes it's better to not have so much clients when you go out to raise your first round of this funding, because when you have 40 clients or so, it is not so much, but it is also not low. People would almost start to track your growth, which is very hard, right? Because your curve has always had your curve always has to be up, right? But when you haven't launched yet, you have some paying clients, but you have a strong team, you have a strong market product. You can sell more of like what things can be, right? So that was how we raised our very first round of funding. And after that, since then, we have scaled to a few hundred clients. So yeah.
Well, that's really cool. And for our listeners that don't know what an MVP is, it's a minimal viable product. So that's the model where before you build anything, you want to see if it works. Before you, like Desmond said, before you dedicate a lot of time, money, resources to this, you want to see if this is a product that your customer even wants. And a lot of good points too, that you really understood your pain points, like the customer pain points. That's a great indicator of a good founder. If that came to you, you didn't know what the pain points were, then I would have an issue if I was going to invest inside you.
I think it's really important because, like you mentioned, a lot of these companies that have mostly hourly workers, for example, like restaurants, it's very hard for them to see why they need to integrate a software, right? When they could just out to the candidate, in person by phone. So I was wondering, like, how did you go about, proposing that idea to them and like making them understand, how to fill the void and fill the gap, and make them understand this is something that could really improve their processes in hiring candidates. Even before you showed them the software, even before you showed them the demo, how were you able to convince them that this is like something that could really improve your processes?
One thing that we often do is you always love to ask open-ended questions. Try to ask them, hey, tell me more about your current hiring process. Tell me what you wish could be better, right? People always wish something could be better. Right. What are some things that you love about the way that you do things now? What are some things that you really don't like, right? So by asking such open-ended question, it really served me well because the client who I talk to, he or she would actually share some of the likes and pains that she has, right? Because there's always things that you wish could be better, right? And so that's one thing that I do. The second thing that I did in the very early days, which is much harder to do now, is to go and watch how they do it. If I could stand right next to them and see how they do things. For example, if you think about trying to book travel in the past, people always say, oh, I love to book travel. It is so fun. But when you see someone do it on her own and she spends like 2 hours trying to go on to 10 of the sites and she still cannot find a good way and a good price, you already know that she actually doesn't like it so much. She thinks that she like it, right? So this is the same case for hiring. People may say that, hey, I love to go through every person and to call every single one. But when you actually watch them face to face, it is very different. So what someone thinks and what someone does, it is very different. And many times people, even me, I think we don't know our own pain point. We think that we do, but we don't.
Very true. That's similar to like a lot of companies who, follow their own processes and they think that their processes are perfect, because they don't see it from a third person perspective. But when you have a third party person go and, see how you work, you can see, like, oh, I can see there are definitely voids in the processes. There are definitely gaps in the processes. So
and
really important.
Most of the time when you're presenting a new idea, sometimes the customer doesn't even know that they need the product.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even we're guilty of that too. Our day-to-day routine. We don't like to change our day-to-day routine. We make one adjustment that totally improves the entire process. Like, dude, why didn't we do this before? It was amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the job of the entrepreneur. You had to show them that they need this product, that their life would be improved by it. And that's something that once they use it, they can't live without it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And then you mentioned that you're wireframing too. I think most people, especially early entrepreneurs, would be like, or tech entrepreneurs would be like, hey, I need a working demo. I need my code to work. I need this and that to work. Otherwise, people will never invest in me. And here you are telling us you don't need an actual product yet. You need good wireframing, And wireframing can be done through PowerPoint slides too.
Yes.
Is that you have to just show where the redirect buttons are and what they do.
Yep. Yes.
Of course, you'd be more fancy, hire a software engineer to do it, but
it will just cost so much more money and time, right? I will even say that time it is almost more key than cash, right? Because if you get someone to spend the next 3 to 6 months to build a software and it's wrong, right, and you have to go back to rebuild everything again. So people always think about money, but time is very, very key too.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and earlier too, you brought up a really good point that, I think most of the perception of tech companies in the Bay Area, it's like we raise a lot of money and then we burn it all really quickly. That's, you read a lot of articles about other companies who are more well-known, and then you see stuff happening to WeWork. You're like, wow, this company grew too fast without a strong financial model. And what you brought up earlier is a really good point, because you don't have to grow quickly with the expense of taking more debt.
Yep.
Because that's a dangerous move, especially in the COVID-19. And the fact that you're overly leveraged and you don't find a way to sustain yourself with a profitable margin, you're gonna sink really quickly.
Yeah, no, that is very, very true. That is very. I think when me and my two other founders, Max and Lei, when we first launched the company, we all didn't get paid for the first 6 months. We were just trying to make sure that this works first. We didn't care about paying ourselves from the start, and that really helped us to focus. So
yeah, I really like that financial model. Super, super smart, by the way. Now I know
Thank you.
why you guys are aggressively growing during this COVID.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. And I think that is a good point. I mean, in terms of this hiring trends, you will see that many people are actually still hiring, even though I would say restaurants, hotels, they are hiring less. But if you look at other sectors like, supermarkets, healthcare, companies hiring drivers, those are still hiring quite a bit. And I think in the coming weeks and months, many of these businesses, they are now trying to prep to reopen. So that is something that we are very keen to be helpful to as teams try to open up. So.
Yeah. And speaking of COVID-19, I know, much of the inspiration behind Workstream was, unemployment rates were very low. And now that unemployment rates are, increasing at this time, how do you think the hiring processes for a lot of companies are changing? I know a lot of people are trying to come out with, ideas and ways to make hiring processes, much faster for, people who have lost their jobs. How do you think, in your own perspective, the hiring processes have changed now due to COVID-19?
Yeah. I think that's one of the strengths of our software, right? Being able to help people to get hired faster, sometimes in the same days, if not in just a few days, just because of our software trying to use text-based hiring software. That's the very first point. Second point is, yes, I think there's much more people trying to look for jobs, maybe more job seekers than jobs for the moment. Right. But from the point of view of these businesses, it will always be key to be able to find people who are good, people who align with this job scope. So what our tool does is it helps you to screen through people quickly through our software. You can create quizzes and forms through our software. You can get people to self-schedule for a time to come in to meet with you. You can handle all of this paperwork, W4, I-9, background checks. All those can be done through our software, through the phone, where people can sign with your finger from the phone.
Wow.
Yeah, so all this is really end-to-end. Every single step is all done via the phone. So that's really going to save time.
Right.
And I think the third point I have to make is our software helps you to practice this contactless hiring. So you do not have to meet them to screen them and to get them to sign paperwork. So all those can be done from home. So you run much less risk of having to meet them face to face.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely love that pivot too. Like you're definitely pivoting, you're readjusting, you're adapting to the market.
Yeah.
So at what point when you were raising your seed money that you realized that you should hire your first employee? Because it seems like you guys moved at light speed, like 2.5 years, 3, like that's fast. Like
Thank you.
How did you realize you need to hire that first employee, and when did you realize that you really had to grow and hire 40 employees?
Yeah. I think the first two people we hired, one was someone to do UI UX, to do design, because I found that even though I could draw some of these wireframes, but someone else could probably draw it better than me. So we definitely found someone to draw that. Then next we hired 2 more software engineers to work with one of my founders to really build this out faster. So you will see the trends of this software companies. It is in the early days, I would say for the first 5 to 10 hires, it is almost going to be focused around product, like UI, UX, design, software engineers, and you probably have 1 to 2%, probably one of the founders who would actually sell first. And that was really my role. I closed the first 100 clients for us on my own. I was jumping on Zoom calls just like this, maybe about 12 to 13 calls, like just like this every single day. Each was about half an hour or more, and I would show the software demo through Zoom. So I was doing that for almost 6 to 9 months, like every day, just having back-to-back calls. And that was how I closed the first 100 clients for us. So I would say those were the early days of how we were able to push things through.
Wow, that's amazing. And after you secure your financial models, and then from there you went to venture capitalist money, right? And you start.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
For our listeners, like they have to know that things start in order. There's a lot of we're just gonna go straight to venture capitalist money.
Yeah.
We should-
I never like to come out to raise funding. I always think of like when you don't want to raise funding is when they will come after you, right? Um, all my fund raising flows has been finished in about 2 to 3 weeks. So it was all quite quick, but I really packed every single day very tight,
Yeah.
right? I must have pitched at least like 30 to 40 people, but they're all very back to back. So I was able to create like FOMO when I was out to raise funding, right? I was saying, hey, I have this 3 to 4 weeks when I'm out to raise funding. So I was very clear about that.
Yeah.
So that was very helpful. But you shouldn't go out to fundraise for the purpose of, hey, let's raise funding first so that I have the money to build something. I think that is not the right order.
Yeah.
Always try to come up with something that has some value, has a few paying clients, and that people can see that, hey, there's some value there.
Yeah.
Then people would see it.
Okay. Wow, that's really cool to hear that too. And some of the questions that we get when an Asian Hustle Network is, when people start raising money, they're not sure how involved they want their early investors to be. How have you dealt with this problem? You know, like I know for a fact that when you're just starting out with an idea, you bring on angel investors, they always have something to say about the product. How have you dealt with the situation before?
Yeah, I've been quite lucky. We really took care to choose the right fit of people who could be there when we wanted their help. So people have been generally quite hands off, but when we have things to ask, they will be there for us.
Okay.
So I think you should be very careful on who you choose to partner with. That is very key, right? Because once they are in your cap table, it's hard to change.
Yeah.
So on my end, what I do is every month I will send out one actually email to all the funds and to all the angels who have actually given me money. I will send it out at the end of the month, and that has worked very well for me in terms of just a very strict monthly practice with all my clear metrics, product launch, product changes, and team and hires.
Right.
So I will do that every single month with a very fixed structure on the same day. Because it is very tough for you to jump on calls with everyone, because if you do that every other month, you have no time to do the real work, right? So that was what I've been doing now for the past 2 years, and it's been going well. So
that's a really good point you bring up too, because I think when you're an early entrepreneur and someone offers you money, you're like, yeah, I'll take it. But you really have to find your fit. You know, like this person will be with you for a long time, and you really want that chemistry too. It's not just the chemistry with the co-founders, it's a chemistry with your early investors too, because having a good relationship with them can mean the world to like the next level. You know, if you're constantly arguing with your angel investor, then you're in trouble. Yeah. So yeah, I just want to bring a tip out to all the Asian Hustle Network people listening. You know, like don't accept the first hoard of cash comes your way. It's very tempting.
Yes, no, I think that is very true.
Yeah.
Very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're nearing the end of the podcast. We're extremely excited to have you here and learn so much about your journey. You know?
Thank you.
So what's the next step? Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years and 10 years from now?
And what are your goals for Workstream?
Yeah, I think we are still very early, to be honest. We are still very early. There's still so much for us to learn. I really believe in our team's mission, right? There's more than 80 million hourly folks in the US, and in the world there's more than 2 billion hourly workers. It's a really huge space, and there's just not been enough software built to serve them better, right? So we are really on this very strong focus and very strong mission to help them to be able to not just find work better, but to manage their current workflows better too. So that is really what we really hope to do. Try to start from the US and try to create impact and change to both local businesses, restaurants, hotels, healthcare companies, and more. but to also create change for many of these elderly folks. So
Right.
if you ask me, 5 to 10 years, I hope to be able to still be on this mission, trying to bring back to actually what like, Brian was trying to share early on. I think it is very key to find something that you really feel strongly about.
Yeah.
I often tell folks that I was really lucky. At the age of 7, I found my first love,
Oh.
basketball. So I've been playing basketball from when I was 7 until I was about 25. Or maybe till I was about 24. Then I think for the next 4 to 5 years, I was very lost. To be very honest, I was trying to find out what's my next love, because I was growing old, so I can't keep playing sports, right? So I spent the next 4 to 5 years really trying to figure out what to do. I work for many people for free. I talk to many people, one-on-ones, coffee chat. I just work for free for folks too. But through that 3 to 4 years or 5 years, I really found out what I really want to do. So I've been trying to build my current company for the past 3 years, and I feel very thankful to share that I found something that I feel I can do for the next 5, 10, 20 years and more. So yeah.
Wow.
Wow, that's really, really awesome that you found.
I know. And not a lot of people can say that, Yeah.
It's a journey. You're gonna have your highs and your lows. It's really, really normal to feel lost. And being lost can be defined in 2 different ways. You can take it a bad way, you can take it a good way. You can take it as a way to reinvent yourself, to figure out what is your true passion. Sometimes being lost is just the universe putting you in the right path.
Yeah.
Yes, that's very true.
You have to believe that sometimes that's the case. You have to look back and be like, wow, I'm so glad I was lost during that time. Because if I was not lost, I would have not met this person. It went this way.
It varies with every person. Some people find their passion when they're 7 years old, or some people find their passion when they're 40 or 50. It's like it really it depends. It's everyone has their own journey. Everyone has their own path.
There's no apples to apples person with anyone. You take life at your own pace, whatever you feel comfortable. Because you realize, like, as soon as you move in a pace that you're not comfortable with, you make a lot of mistakes. You can't achieve things you want to achieve, and then it creates a sense of unhappiness because you're not doing things the way you should be doing it. Your pace. But yeah, we're super excited and really happy to have you here, the Asian Hustle Network podcast. Thank you so much for your time.
And then we just wanted to ask one more question for all of our listeners of the Asian Hustle Network podcast. What is one message that you want to share with all of our listeners? One message that you like to share with everyone, your go-to message for everyone listening to this podcast.
And how can they reach
Desmond?
you?
People can just actually
help you.
People can always just email me, Desmond at this actually workstream.is. So people can always just email me or come onto Facebook to find me. In terms of the message, I think what I always love to think about is what the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve, right? So that is like my so-called slogan that I had since young. So I would just love to live this with the group.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Desmond.
Thank you so much.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe to the show.
We would like to get to the top 10 on iTunes, so be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We release an episode every single Wednesday, so stay tuned.
Thank you guys so much.